The biggest myths that I hear about language learning all the time. One big one is that you need to speak from the beginning. So I've talked about this before in other videos, but it bears repeating. If you speak too much early on, you will have a much stronger accent. So I've watched a lot of videos of people who have studied Russian for the same amount of time as I have, about 2 to 3 years, who speak more fluidly. They can speak pretty well. And my speech, I haven't practiced a lot of real conversation, so my speech is very slow. But my accent is much better. And in a few more years, I will be able to speak as fluidly as they do, but my accent will be much better. If that doesn't matter to you, then that makes sense. Some people really don't care. But if you want to have a good accent, and I'm not saying it has to be perfect. My accent is not perfect. Probably never will be. But it's much closer in Spanish as well. And that's partly because I focus so much more on listening and I don't pressure myself to speak. Because once you make a habit of saying something the wrong way, it's very difficult to break the habit. And you even become unable to notice that you're doing it or that other people are saying the word differently. So, also, listening is so much more important in general in life. You can have a conversation where you speak only a few words. Yes, no, maybe, interesting, cool. And yet, if you understand everything the other person is saying, you can have a great conversation. Whereas, even if you're able to speak very fluidly, if you only understand half of what they're saying, you're not going to have a good conversation. Or you're not going to have, as in my opinion, it's not as good of a conversation. It's more important to understand the world around you than to be able to express yourself in a complicated or rapid way. Especially if your accent is not as good as it could be. I don't think it's worth it. So I think that's a myth when people tell you you have to speak. Why? Every time you practice speaking, you could have spent that time on practicing listening, which is arguably the more important skill. And even if it's not more important, it's not a waste of time. So if you don't feel like speaking, there's really no rush. You can focus on 100% listening if you want. Get to a level where you understand everything. I guarantee I guarantee you will be able to say some things even if you've never spoken. People who say, I can understand the language, but I can't speak it, it's not true. They either don't really understand, or if they do, they're just nervous to speak. They're just shy. But their speaking might not be as strong as it could be if they practiced more speech, of course. Anyway, that's one myth that I'm tired of hearing repeated. Another one is that flashcards are a waste of time. A lot of people say flashcards are a waste of time because they're not real authentic language. Everything you're studying there is out of context. And while this is true, it's still, it can be like a supplement to your learning process. But it's also important to remember that children, when they learn their native language, spend a lot of time simply memorizing information in school for 15 to 20 years. People grow up essentially learning their own native language in an academic environment. And every day they're required to memorize words. Memorizing information is memorizing words. And it's obviously important to focus on new information. I think flashcards are great, and I think they've been used for ever. People have always used, I mean, it's a tried and true method. It's just not a complete method. I used to focus a lot more on memorizing words with Spanish before I really got into conversation, and my vocabulary was very high, but I was not able to converse. But it wasn't a way. I was able to converse, but I wasn't able to converse fluidly. But that doesn't mean it was a waste of time at all, because then when I came to Mexico, well, before that, I started working with Spanish speakers. When I started practicing conversation more, I had all of this knowledge ready to go. I had thousands and thousands of words. All I had to do was make them more fluid, kind of convert them from knowledge into language. And I don't think that process is inefficient at all. You do have to memorize the words primarily before you can start using them. Ideally, you just do both. You practice conversation and you do flashcards. The question is, how well can you pay attention? Because some people just complain. I try to do flashcards and it's like 15 minutes of just staring at the screen, and I learn 2 or 3 words and it just feels like a complete waste of time. That is understandable. I understand if people don't want to do flashcards because it's so boring, they can't focus. However, I would say if that's the case with you, don't throw out flashcards completely. If it's really difficult for you to pay attention for flashcards, just do 5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes every day. You can do 5 minutes. You can do 4 minutes. Do something. And every week or whatever, whenever you feel ready, do 10 minutes, or 8 minutes. Like make it, because your brain will get used to, oh, we're back into flashcards mode. Here's the app. Oh yeah, these are the words. I got to pay attention. This is only going to be 5 minutes. Like as you get used to it, like a muscle, you get better at being able to focus. I've been doing it for many years and I still lose focus all the time. But I can sit down for an hour, sometimes more, with flashcards, and I promise you, I've learned a lot of words from flashcards, because it's great to listen to authentic speech. Of course, you have to listen to authentic speech, but it's a very powerful tool to be able to focus on specifically the words that you are learning that you don't know very well, or that you don't know at all. And of course, it's not going to stick in your brain quite like language yet. You have to then go find those words in the real world, in the wilderness. So what people will often, they'll go and hear a word, and they'll hear a word in conversation, and they'll go, what does that word mean? And someone tells them, and they go, oh, I learned this word in my flashcards, but then I didn't recognize it in conversation, so I guess that was a waste of time. No, because think about this. When they told you the meaning, you remembered that you knew the word in your flashcards. So your brain did remember the meaning of the word. It just didn't know it in that context. And that's totally normal. This is a new context. You're not in the flashcard world. You're in a real conversation. But now your brain goes, oh, the word I memorized here is being used in language here. Now there's a link. And that link makes the word so much stronger than if you had not studied it in flashcards before. So, and that goes both ways. I used to listen to words. I used to listen to songs, and I would hear words all the time. Before I understood anything in Spanish and Russian, I would get these words stuck in my head, gibberish, complete gibberish. I had no idea what they meant, but I would love the song, and I would try to sing along. I couldn't really, but deep in my mind, I would recognize the sound of the word, especially words you hear many times in language. Later, when I encountered the word in study, my brain would sing the song. The song would come back to me, like, oh, it's from that line in that song. So same thing. This leads to my next point. Another myth is that you have to listen to language at your level. You shouldn't waste your time with language that's too advanced or too simple, for that matter. I disagree. I don't think it's a waste of time at all to listen to language that is beyond your level, because like I said, I was listening to language all the time before I understood anything. And then later, when I learned those words, all that time I spent listening to the words made it so much easier to remember. Because if you encounter a word in flashcards and your brain goes, that's the word from the song, you got it. You almost can just delete the card right there because your brain goes, oh, okay, this is important because I've heard it 1,000 times before. And now I finally know what it means. Gives you an emotional connection, a sense of meaning. You just have to do both, right? Flashcards don't give you the emotional connection, but they give you the time. And then later, when there's context, when there's relevance, later that those two worlds connect, and that I don't think that's a waste of time at all. I think it's inevitable. You have to do it. You have to memorize the word and spend boring time with it in some context. Because even conversation can be boring. Not everything is always going to emotionally attract you. So yeah, I think that's another huge myth, is that you should focus only on comprehensible input. However, I would be a hypocrite if I said I don't care about comprehensible input. I do actually focus most of my listening on comprehensible input, but that's now that I'm at a more intermediate stage. Early on, I really didn't care at all, and I don't think it really matters that much. But later on, one of the big advantages of focusing on comprehensible input is just that it motivates you. For the same reason I suggest starting with a little bit of flashcards if it's boring. Don't burn out. Don't try to force yourself to sit there for an hour when you're not able to focus. That's discouraging and it's a waste of time. Same with only listening to super advanced material or without subtitles. Another myth. People tell you it's a waste of time to watch films or videos or podcasts with subtitles in your native language. I disagree. I very much disagree about this because obviously most people's experience with watching films in a foreign language that they don't know at all when they have subtitles in their native language is that none of that foreign language, none of it comes to them. Almost none of it. Maybe a couple words. Bonjour, whatever. Bonjour. My French is awful, by the way. But a few words come, but really, yeah, if you're not studying the language, it seems like if your native subtitles are there, you're not getting anything. And that's somewhat true. Listening to language beyond your level, way beyond your, like, authentic native content when you know nothing is probably better. I think it's better when you're just doing dishes or driving, or you're kind of not trying to listen, but it's just coming in naturally. So that can happen to a degree with movies if you have native subtitles as a beginner. But I disagree that you shouldn't do it because I think at a more intermediate level, when you actually do understand a lot of the spoken language, it's very helpful to have your native language subtitles to read because actually, especially if you practice, subtitles are a thing. They're a skill. Being able to listen and read at the same time in two different languages is a skill, and you will get better at it. So if you already know a lot of what they're saying, then when you're reading your native language, you can hear exactly which words you didn't understand because it's so easy with the subtitles. You can read your own native language so quickly that it makes it just easier to understand, but you're still focusing. I don't miss any of the words that I already know. And it's really important to review and keep hearing the words that you already know in real speech. And the native subtitles make that listening process so much easier. I'm not saying you should always do it. Sometimes it's important to challenge yourself and just listen, right? Because I still continue to listen to advanced language, usually still when I'm doing dishes or something like that. But I understand a lot of it. So if flashcards are a waste of time and watching videos with my native English subtitles is a waste of time, why is it that I can understand so much? I mean, clearly it's working for me. Like I said, my speech in Russian is not very fluent, but I haven't practiced that much speech. But my accent is much better than most people who are much more fluent at speaking uh, who've spent the same amount of time as me. So that's also a matter of preference, like I said. Other myths that I'm tired of hearing. I don't know, those are the main ones. Yeah, that you have another classic one, and obviously everybody talks about this now, but it's still worth mentioning the myth that you need to move to a foreign country to learn its language. This is has obviously been debunked because there are so many people who become terrific at a language without some people without ever even meeting someone from that language in person, maybe online. But people can even get to a pretty good level without even having real conversations. Maybe not fluent, but you can get pretty far from just studying. But what I like to do is I like to study a lot, get to a intermediate level, and then start having more conversation. And of course, it's easier, more convenient if you go to that country, or if you can find work in that country. Yeah, it's much easier, and there's more motivation. That's always a question too. But the problem is, people will often say, "Someday I'm going to learn that language because someday I'm going to move there," and so they never study. They never practice because they think it's a waste of time. Oh, you'll never learn a language memorizing words and listening to podcasts. Are you sick? Are you kidding? Actually, in the early stages, you'll learn a language much faster with flashcards and podcasts than you will just by living in a foreign country. Plenty of people move to foreign countries and they never learn the language. They might learn just enough to get by, how to talk about where's the train, or talk about really how to ask for directions or that kind of thing. But they don't know why. They just never pick up the language because you have to study. Children study their own language. You have to study as well. I'm sorry, it's bad news, I guess, if you don't like to study. But the good news is you can figure out a way that makes studying more fun for you. Or if it's simply not fun at all, you can start small and you become stronger. You become used to study. And suddenly studying for 2 hours a day is not like a big ordeal. It's like actually kind of nice, relaxing activity as you get used to it. Just like exercise. People who exercise every day, they don't force themselves to get out there with grit. They enjoy it. They might not admit it because they want you to think that they're so strong-willed. But really, like, I exercise almost every day. I think about it for hours. Like, I honestly have to make myself not exercise because it's like an addiction. It's like, I want to go, I want to move, I want to do it. Same thing with language. I'm so excited. I'm getting more fluent. This is so cool. I'll sit down for 2 hours, 3 hours. So anyway, don't wait to move to a foreign language, to move to a foreign country to start studying a foreign language. Just start with whatever. Duolingo, flashcards. That's another myth that Duolingo doesn't work. I can complain a lot about Duolingo. I talked about Duolingo in another video, and I did not mention a lot of things that I don't like about Duolingo after years of I was obsessed with Duolingo with Russian, not with Spanish. I didn't use it, but it's whatever works for you. Honestly, I always say this, like the best method is first of all whatever you like to do because it keeps you motivated, but secondly, if you don't have a problem with motivation, if that's not an issue for you, you can do whatever. The best thing is variety. Practice listening, practice speech. But if you're gonna practice speech early on, I'm not saying don't do it. But if you want to practice speech early on, I would just please, like, if you care about your accent, focus on the simple stuff. You might know a lot of words, but keep going back to those basic words and really working on the sounds. Like, I think speech should be at a much more basic level. You should practice those everyday phrases because the sounds that you're going to make, the muscles you're going to use in those words that you've heard thousands of times already, you're going to make those same sounds in all those other thousands of words. But if you hurry along and you don't get them right, get the basic words right, those words are the ones you're going to say the most. They're the most common words. So you're just perpetuating the bad habit. So yeah, like I still spend time with the really simple stuff when it comes to speech. But I still argue if you really want to make use of your language, the most important thing is listen, 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 listen. Anyway, I don't usually ask for comments because people, I, I don't usually ask like the video, subscribe. Like, you know, you can like the video. Like, I don't need to tell you this. It's like a weird YouTube thing that people do. Like, no one says in Instagram Reels, like, follow my page. Like, it's just like, duh. If I like the video, I'm gonna like the video. I don't know, but you could leave a comment. I am actually interested to know, like, what are some other myths that you think are untrue that everyone is perpetuating about language learning. Thank you.